Okay, lovely. So in the second part of the lesson, we're going to be focusing back in on text B. Okay, so this is the Guardian article. Now, I love things that surprise me because usually we would expect Guardian article, articulate, informed opinion. Now, actually, this article is articulate, it's well written. You're going to see from the vocabulary and the phrasing that this person, Naomi Wolf, is informed. However, do I agree with her opinion? And actually, there is something about writers who present themselves as very credible and trustworthy. Do we get swept up in that and just therefore assume they must be telling us a truth or something that we must agree with because they're articulate, they're intelligent, they're educated, they're writing in The Guardian? Or actually, are we still to exercise a little bit of discernment and self-judgment? I think this is one of those articles where I still exercise a little bit of discernment and judgment and think, okay, I appreciate what you're saying, Naomi Wolf, but do I agree with you? I'm not so sure. And that's the A grade characteristic. That's the A grade level of analysis, way of working that this exam board wants to see, that you are autonomous. In other words, you have your own opinion. You're able to offer a measured, articulate argument in response to what you've read. Anyway, so we're looking at paragraph 1. We've already seen our headline, our standfest, and our caption. Okay, guys, so patriarchy is inventive. The minute a generation of women has figured out how not to be enslaved by ideology A, some new cultural pressure arises in the form of internalization B, making sure they don't get too far too fast. The latest example, the most empowered generation of women ever. Today's 20-somethings in North America and Britain is being hobbled in some important ways by something as basic as a new fashion in how they use their voices. Okay, guys, so I'm just going to read through the tasks, then you can pause, work through them, then we'll go through the answers together. So it says over here, the opening sentence is what type of sentence? A little bit of labeling there. What would you tell me about the sentence? Patriarchy means. So how would you define patriarchy? Okay, whilst the adjective inventive implies. So actually we're doing a really zoomed close analysis of this opening sentence. What sentence type is it? What is the meaning of patriarchy? What does the adjective inventive imply? This suggests that are to blame for what's happening. So actually who's coming under accusation, who's coming under scrutiny? So that answer is going to come from your understanding of what patriarchy means. Okay, guys? And this links to the idea of deficit, dominance, difference, because. So this last one is a challenge. If you get it, brilliant. Just before we stopped meeting in person, we were introducing gender, and we introduced 3 Ds. The D of definite, dominance, and difference that we were going to be exploring under the guise of other theorists, others contributors to this debate. So that is a real challenge one because you might or might not remember. You might want to dig out your notes. So I'll see if you get that. If not, I'll talk to you about that in a minute, okay? So then we're over to the green. The blue. Which words could be grouped as part of a semantic field linked to feminism? So which words is this writer using in this opening paragraph that could come under this umbrella term of feminism that we would expect to see in the semantic field, the vocabulary of feminists, okay? Can you find at least 3 of them? At the end of the paragraph, what is revealed as being an example of a culture pressure that's holding women back. So what's the pressure that's holding women back? And how does the noun phrase new fashion link back to the articles of last Lot of Learning by Katie Edwards and Chilu? Okay, so just press pause there and we'll go through those answers together in a minute. Okay, so what type of opening sentence have we got? We've got declarative for the C grade, simple declarative for the A grade, okay? So actually the opening sentence is simple declarative sentence. Now that's not because this writer is using simple sentences because they're assuming their audience is simple. We know that because the vocabulary patriarchy and inventive actually is establishing a high register, okay? So a high expectation of their reader and their level of knowledge and education. So this is all about what we see good writers using simple declaratives for. This is for emphasis. This creates an emphatic, definitive, factive statement. And we've seen writers using this at the end of arguments as well. Patriarchy is inventive. Now that present tense verb from the verb to be leaves no room for argument, no room for disagreement. This is creating what we call that factive tone. It's very enforced. It's a very strong opinion. Patriarchy is inventive, which is why we need to check in with what these two words mean. So patriarchy, what did you get for patriarchy? So patriarchy is being used there as a noun, and it's a system of society or government in which the father or the eldest male is head of the family and descent comes down through the male line. In other words, that takes us to a modern day understanding of patriarchy, where a system of societal government supports the idea that men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. Okay, so it's a society organized on a legacy of patriarchy, of male dominance, male influence, males holding the power. So here we've got an introduction that has a different focus. Although we know the vocal fries coming through, the behavior of women is being set against the behavior of men. So patriarchy, so the idea that we want men to retain positions of power and dominance, is inventive. So what does that word inventive implies? Creativity, invention, the ability to plan and strategize and create ways, creative ways to maintain a patriarchal structure. So in other words, this suggests that who is to blame for what's happening? It's men. This suggests the men are to blame for what's happening in our society. Now, that links to the idea of dominance. Now, when we look at the gender theories, when we begin to look at those next week, okay, we will see that there is a dominance theory, and that is a set of beliefs and concepts and research that supports the idea that men dominate in society. Okay, so patriarchy is inventive is very much introducing us at the beginning of this article to an old entrenched idea that patriarchy, that a system of organizing society in which men hold the power and women are excluded from it, does so in inventive and creative ways. Okay, so if we then look through the rest of this paragraph, we've got patriarchy then being set against feminism. Okay, so the minute a generation of women has figured out how not to be enslaved by ideology, so feminism, we could put that verb choice enslaved within that semantic field, the concept, the belief that women have been enslaved by ideology, so beliefs and values that say women are weaker, women are deficit, women are subordinate to men. So once women get free of one idea and one set of beliefs, some new cultural pressure arises in the form of internalization B, making sure they don't get too far too fast. The latest example, the most empowered generation of women ever. So we've got empowered. So feminism is about the empowering of women. Now it's a comparative adjective there. So it's not a verb in that context, most empowered. So it's saying that women have come a long way. We are the most empowered generation of women ever. So there's the positive side of feminism, the empowerment of women, set against the history, the enslavement of women. So we've got enslaved, empowered. Today's 20-somethings in North America and Britain is being hobbled in some important ways by something as basic as a new fashion and how they use their voices. So we could talk about a choice of words that can make up number 3, ideology. That means the values and beliefs. So feminism, feminist ideology is often set against a patriarchal ideology. They're in conflict. Internalization, hobbled. So these are all words that tell us that our writer has a feminist perspective. Okay, very strongly feminist perspective about the role of men and women. At the end of the paragraph, what's being revealed is an example, of cultural pressure. Okay, and it says, and it leads up to the revelation of this. Okay, a new cultural pressure arises, and then we've got the cohesive link. Latest example at the beginning of this last extended complex sentence says the cultural pressure is now being referred to as the latest example, and then it reveals it in the end, something as basic as a new fashion in how they use their voices. So at the end of the paragraph, what's revealed as being an example of a cultural pressure that's holding women back? How they use their voices. So that final kind of verb phrase, how they use their voices. So women are being held back by the voices that they use, by the way that they speak. Now, we've seen that noun phrase, new fashion. We've labelled that one for you. But how's that linking back to articles by Katie Edwards and Chi Lu? Good. They all use extended metaphors of dress. So this idea around how we speak being linked to how we dress, being linked to fashion, being linked to trends. In the Katie Edwards and the Chi Lu talks about dressing for work, dressing for certain contexts, and therefore changing your voice. So we've got this extended metaphor across 3 articles now that equates how I speak with how I dress. And here the idea of fashion, okay, we could argue is a female stereotype that women are interested in fashion, okay, and that it's a fashion, so it's a passing trend. It's very popular now, but it will pass out of fashion. Now, an old-fashioned word there, just within that context, just to give you a bit of clarity, hobbled. Okay, when you hobble somebody, you stop them being able to walk. Hobbling is a way that prisoners would have been enslaved, takes us back to the image of slavery, that you would bind people's feet, that you would chain people's feet, that you would have special manacles that would fit around the feet to hobble the way somebody walks, so they couldn't run away and they couldn't walk very fast. Okay, so a very strong feminist perspective being established in this first paragraph. And the feminist perspective is setting itself against and in opposition to patriarchy, the established ways of organizing society. Okay, so paragraph 1 sorted. So now she moves on. This demographic of women, so we've got the cohesive link back to the paragraph we've just read, this demographic of women, so this group of young women, 20-something North American and British women, tends to have a distinctive speech pattern. Many commentators have noted it, often with dismay. Times magazine devoted a column to the mannerism called vocal fry, noting a study that found that this speech pattern makes young women who use it sound less competent, less trustworthy, less educated, and less hireable. Think Britney Spears and the Kardashians. Okay, so how is vocal fry being explained in this paragraph? So just copy and complete the statement. Vocal fry is, we're going to share our answers in a minute. What are the comparative adjectives that are repeated? Now, when I say repeated, remember, these are the comparative adjectives that we've just seen under the caption of the image. And what do they mean? Who is cited as examples of vocal fry here? So which cultural references, which references to people giving us examples of people that use vocal fry? And are any of these examples used in the female article? Could we create a link back to the female article? Okay, so just pause and go through and record your answers, and we'll share in a minute. Okay, guys, so the simple definition, vocal fry is a distinctive speech pattern. Okay, it's a pattern of how we speak. It's a speech pattern. Now, that's it. If we were talking descriptively, that's all vocal fry is. It's a distinctive speech pattern. So in other words, it's a unique way of speaking. Everything else in this paragraph begins to attach to vocal fry an attitude. Okay, so although I didn't ask you to look at them, if we just look, immediately it's linked with this word dismay, often with dismay. Many commentators have noticed it, often with dismay. Now, dismay implies distress, that people don't like it. So we see in the female article, it uses the word unsavory. So people's responses to vocal fry tend to be negative. Now, I'm just going to say word of caution here when we look at context. Many commentators. So we've got the plural of commentators, but they're a collective group. So we've got no individual naming of people. Now, in one way, that's like hyperbole. There's lots of commentators saying that this is bad. But actually, who are they? What are their names? Are they commentators I can trust? Are they credible opinions? We don't know. We have no qualification of who these commentators are and whether we can trust them. And actually, if we look at this next bit, it then says Time magazine devoted a column to the mannerism called vocal fry, noting a study that found this speech pattern makes young women who use it less competent, less trustworthy, less educated. So we've got the repetition of these adjectives: competent, trustworthy, educated, and hireable. Competent means your proficiency, your ability to do a job. Trustworthy means your credibility, whether you can be trusted. Educated means how educated you might be, and hireable, whether you're going to get a job. So these 4 areas of competency, trust, education, and hireability are being marked as negative because of vocal fry. But guys, this is where we can get quite nuanced as analytical kind of nuances, because there is no reference here to where that study came from. Times magazine is being cited here as a reliable, credible source. Okay, source of journalism, but they didn't conduct the study. They just noted that a study found these conclusions, but they don't tell you who made the study, whether it's a credible source. So we can immediately say, despite trying to create credible proof by referring to a study, there's nothing that backs that up. And they then end with examples of vocal fry. Okay, so we go Britney Spears and the Kardashians. So which of those links back to the female article? Good. They also mention Kardashians. So they're trying to illustrate people that use vocal fry by drawing from a pool of cultural examples. And that's it for today, guys.